Hello there. I have a bit less of a runway than I used to, considering there is a door right here, so that might be as good as it gets. Regardless, a couple weeks ago, we made a few drinks together. You all seemed to enjoy that, and let you in on a little secret, I really enjoyed it too. So we're gonna do it again today. Now, what's different about today is that there's gonna be a little bit more of a theme and some cohesion across the ingredients for these drinks. Because summer is approaching means iced coffee season is approaching, and also cold brew season is approaching, as ominous as that sounds. The 3 drinks we're gonna be making today are all based around using cold brew, so if you don't have an espresso machine, these are gonna be a lot more accessible to you, either using store-bought cold brew or cold brew that you make on your own. Now, if you wanna know how I make cold brew, that might have to be a separate video. I'm just gonna assume you have cold brew or cold brew concentrate on hand. With that being said, let's get started with our first drink. Since moving into the studio, I have equipped myself with these nice little trays, which makes drink making a whole lot easier. Now, this first drink we're gonna be making is gonna be utilizing cold brew concentrate. So this is undiluted cold brew here. You also might notice that this drink is a little bit of like a riff on a Mai Tai, which is a pretty popular cocktail. And I've taken kind of those base flavors and turned them into a coffee drink. So without further ado, let's get started. There was a really funny comment last week that pointed out that I said multiple times that we were just gonna jump into the video topic. And then I talked about tiny spoons for about 3 minutes. So that's the kind of energy I usually bring to the party. We're gonna try to avoid it today. So, our coffee Mai Tai. Starting off, get yourself a shaker or some sort of vessel separate from what you're serving your drink into. The first ingredient is gonna be 3/4 ounces of orgeat syrup. If you're not familiar with orgeat, this is a kind of a thick syrup that is made using almonds and orange blossom water. Super nutty, floral, really, really delicious. You can either make your own orgeat very easily, or you can buy it. Our next ingredient is 3/4 ounces of fresh lime juice. I tried to keep the proportions of all these ingredients pretty simple on this one. Our next ingredient is gonna be 3/4 ounces of Cara Cara orange juice. Now, you can get away with using just like a standard like navel orange juice or store-bought orange juice for this. I do really like Cara Cara orange juice in this, just because Cara Cara oranges tend to be a little bit softer in flavor. They tend to be a little less punchy. They're a bit more sweet and floral of an orange. But again, you don't have to use that. That would just be like the peak of this recipe. Now, you can either use the top of your shaker and give this a big dry shake to fully incorporate all these ingredients together, or if you prefer, you can use a little hand frother. Because all of these different liquids have pretty different viscosities to them, I find that just stirring this all together doesn't do a super good job at bringing everything together homogeneously. So that's why I like to either dry shake or froth this together. Additionally, drinks that have like citrus juice in them usually benefit from a good bit of agitation. Now we have our service glass, and to this we need to add some ice, so I'll be right back. I happen to be lucky enough to have pebble ice, and I do think pebble ice or crushed ice is nice for this. It's a nice little callback to like kind of tropical and tiki drinks. And additionally, my friend Jordan over at High Proof Preacher had a pebble ice machine he wasn't using anymore, so thank you, Jordan, for our pebble ice today. Now, directly into this, I'm gonna pour our syrup and our citrus mixture. Next thing is about 3 ounces of sparkling water. Now, you wanna make sure you have a little bit of headroom on your drink because we still have to add our coffee. Final ingredient, we have 2 ounces of cold brew concentrate. You can buy bottled concentrates in store, or you can brew them yourself. I also find that specifically for like iced drinks and iced lattes, cold brew concentrate tends to be a pretty decent substitute for espresso, just because it's chilled and it has that intensity that espresso does. It's not a one-to-one like market substitute, but it'll do a pretty good job. And then simply float our cold brew on top, which gives us this nice sort of layered effect. Everyone is watching very nervously as I fill the glass very tall. Now, you could serve and enjoy this drink here. I like to add a little bit of mint to this. So I have some fresh mint here just to get some of those aromas expressed. Give it like a little bit of a whack and slot it to the side. Right like that. Oh, I have made this a bit tall. I have done this to myself, it's fine. Now, this drink I like to serve with a straw, and I also like to give it a vigorous stir to incorporate all those flavors before I enjoy it. However, for the sake of presentation, I think this layered effect is kind of nice. Doing this very carefully Hopefully you didn't spill too much, but regardless, here's our first drink. This is our cold brew coffee Mai Tai. Now, I'm gonna go take a sip of this. I'm gonna go get our next tray because we have 2 more drinks to make. I'll be right back. I want to give a huge thank you to Trade for sponsoring today's video. Whether you're a hot coffee person, a cold coffee person, or a lover of both, the fact is that to make good coffee, you have to start with good coffee, and there's no easier way to begin exploring delicious coffee than with Trade. Trade is a coffee subscription service that makes it easy to find new coffees from all over the US. With over 55 independent roasters and over 450 coffees to choose from, you can explore something new every bag or rest easy in knowing that your favorite coffee will arrive consistently on the schedule that works best for you. Or, since we're approaching summer, if you're a cold coffee person, Trade has a wide variety of all-in-one kits like this Mitsudashi cold brew kit, where you'll have all the tools to make all the cold coffee you want all year long. Or you can check out their ready-to-drink cold coffee offerings for all your on-the-go needs. So, if any of this sounds up your alley, Trade has a fantastic deal happening for you all. You can get 30% off your first month when you go to drinktrade.com/MDC. That's drinktrade.com/MDC for 30% off your first month of coffee when you visit the top link in the description. All right, welcome back. Let's make drink number 2. This one is gonna be a cold brew old fashioned. I've made this drink in my short form videos a couple of times, but I don't think we've ever talked about it on YouTube. This is a favorite of mine. It is, again, kind of a riff on a traditional cocktail, but it's super tasty. It's a little bit more complex and like coffee forward than the last one is. This is a very, very good like sipping drink on a pretty hot day. This one is definitely gonna be a little bit more complex in terms of technique here. Now starting off, this is gonna be our final serving glass, and I've been chilling it in the freezer for about 20 minutes now. And you'll notice we have all sorts of like chilled condensation on the side. This is because we're gonna be smoking our glass while we build the rest of our drink. This is definitely an optional step if you do not have a drink smoker. However, it's really fun for flair and presentation, and also the smokiness is really, really nice with the rest of this drink. I'm using some oak chips here. A little less vital what type of wood you use. I think oak just has like a really nice, like kind of lighter aroma to it. Cherry wood is also super nice with this. Because this glass is chilled and has condensation on the sides, that smoke is really gonna be able to like cling to the glass and retain once we add our drink. So we're gonna let this kind of settle for a while. Let's build the rest of our drink. Okay, this recipe is gonna make about 2 servings of our final drink. I like to build it in a separate carafe and then just kind of like pour out as needed, just because we're gonna be mixing up some ingredients together. But if you would like to build this in your serving vessel, you definitely could do that as well. Starting off, we have a sugar cube. Very rarely do I get to use sugar cubes, so this is truly a delight. You could also use just a simple syrup if you prefer. I happen to have a lot of sugar cubes on hand. I like to use ingredients that I have on hand in as many recipes as possible. If you are using a simple syrup instead of a sugar cube, I would use like maybe half an ounce. Like you don't need a lot for this. We're gonna be adding sugar in another form as well here in a second. We're gonna do 2 dashes of orange bitters. And of course, make sure you very violently whack the side of your carafe while you add them. Next up in our drink, I'm gonna add about 2 spoonfuls of the juice of cocktail cherries. Now, I have done this with several different varieties of cocktail cherries. I happen to have like a bourbon cocktail cherry here. I've used like very traditional maraschino cherries. Pretty much all of them taste really nice. So I'm not gonna be like too strict on what type of cocktail cherry you should use. But I'm gonna use 2 like small spoonfuls. This is equivalent to about like, it's around like half an ounce of liquid in total. And this is my like very, very tiny spoon, so go in with a little bit more. This recipe is very much feel it out, adjust to taste, if you can't tell. To balance this all out, I'm gonna give this about 4 drops of saline. I'm using a 10-to-1 saline solution, so that is 10 parts water to 1 part salt. Again, this really just kind of like homogenizes and rounds out everything we have going on here. Think of it as like kind of a glue to all of these flavors. Now, it's at this point that I would usually muddle this all together to make sure that sugar cube is fully broken down. Although, because you've been adding liquid on top of it, it should have already come apart a good bit. However, you may notice that I don't have a muddler, which I realized when I showed up to film this morning. So please muddle this down a little bit. I'm using my spoon to slowly break it apart. So it's just Morgan things as usual. Now for our final ingredient, which is gonna be our cold brew, I'm adding 8 ounces of cold brew here. To note, this is not concentrated. This is fully diluted cold brew that I would be drinking just straight if I wasn't adding it to this drink. Now, because this isn't like a true spirit-based cocktail, we don't really need to think about dilution here. So if you would like to chill your drink, you could definitely add ice while you're stirring this together. However, it's definitely not necessary. We're gonna have ice in our final drink regardless. Give it a taste. Adjust any ingredients if needed. Otherwise, let's pour. Okay, our glass has been smoking for about 7 minutes or so. Plenty of time. Ooh. It's always my favorite part. 1 big ice cube for our drink, and then we'll add our beverage. Again, I think this makes about 2 servings. This is a bit of a slower drink to enjoy. This is a very sipping drink, not as much of a crushable, chuggable drink. So if you want to finish all this, by all means go for it. However, I do think 4 to 5 ounces really is a nice amount for service. Now as one final thing, I'm gonna add a little bit of additional smoke on top of the drink and just give it a second to settle there. And I've also made us a little garnish. This is simply a cocktail cherry and an orange peel. When you're ready to serve, here you go. This is our smoked cold brew old fashioned. Super tasty. This is definitely one of my favorites. Very nice. Okay, we have one more drink to make, and it is, oddly enough, the most complex. So let's get started. All right, our final drink is gonna be the most complex. It is also gonna be a clarification, which is something we don't do too often on this channel. However, it is a technique that became very prevalent in the cocktail world. It's very common in barista competitions. I'm gonna show you how to do it today with a drink that I really, really like. This drink is a good bit of effort, a good bit of time. However, this is a drink that you can make in larger batches if you want to scale it up. And additionally, it will keep in your fridge for, I would say up to a week. I would start really tasting and paying attention to it after that. However, you won't see much flavor degradation if you keep it in some sort of sealed container. So it's got a decent shelf life to it, but let's get started. I will explain the process of clarification and what it's doing when we get to that part, but first we have to build our base. Starting off, we have 8 ounces of an orange and mango juice blend. Orange and mango is a fairly common juice blend to find, at least in the US. Usually these are roughly 50-50 in orange to mango juice. So if you don't have access to a blend and you still wanna do an exact recreation of this, you can get away with using 4 ounces of orange juice and 4 ounces of mango juice. For any of you remembering the barista competition this last year, this was an ingredient I used. Super tasty, super versatile. We then have 6 ounces cold brew. Again, this is not a concentrate, this is diluted cold brew. This is a fun color. Don't worry, it gets better. This ingredient is 1.5 ounces of a spicy ginger syrup. I'm gonna show you the bottle so you have an exact reference. This is not sponsored, this is just what I really like to use. This is Liber & Co.'s Fiery Ginger Syrup. You can get away with just using any other ginger syrup you would like, or if you make one, that also works. However, I really like the spice and the ginger balance found in this one. So 1.5 ounces of that. And then to perform our later clarification, we have 1.5 ounces of freshly squeezed lime juice. Very last ingredient is gonna be just a smidgen of rose water. This is a very tiny amount. I think it's maybe 1/4 ounce, probably even a little bit less. This stuff is powerful. You just want a little bit more dimension and florality. Perfect. Okay, give this a stir. Now into our next carafe, I'm gonna add 6 ounces of whole milk. This is where we start clarifying. For this next stage of this process, I'm gonna be slowly pouring our citrus juice and coffee mixture into this while very carefully stirring. It's less stirring and more of a back and forth motion just to get that milk moving. And you'll notice that everything starts curdling. That's intentional, you want that to happen. So just a slow stream. Now this may look pretty gross right now, but that's okay. This is very much a trust the process sort of technique. Now the reason we're causing an intentional curdle here is that in a few minutes, once this kind of settles and fully separates, we're gonna be passing all of this through a coffee filter, which is gonna remove all of the curds that have formed, which leaves the whey in the drink. This is the whey.
This is the whey.
What happens when you leave the whey in the drink and remove the curds from milk is that you're left with the final beverage that has a very uniquely silky texture. It kind of has the heavier weight and like consistency of milk without the flavor of the milk, which is a really kind of fun thing to experience. People often ask if in clarification, does the final drink end up just tasting like milk? And while it definitely doesn't taste like milk, it kind of has the effect of like rounding out all of the perhaps sharper flavors in the drink. So in this, we have a lot of citrus, we have a lot of acids with the lime juice, we have orange juice, we have coffee in here. And by clarifying, not only does it give us a nicer, more interesting texture, but it also kind of just like acts as a glue and kind of a softener to everything. Okay, this has had a couple of minutes to sit. Let's clarify it. Since this is a coffee channel, most of you probably have some sort of pour over brewer, and that will work perfectly for this. Got a flat bottom brewer here, on top of a carafe, standard coffee filter. And we're just gonna pour this in. You can either set up 2 different clarification stations, or you can just kind of go a bit at a time. Usually you can filter about half of this in one go, and then you filter the other half. Now you'll notice that there is a liquid dripping into the bottom here that looks substantially more clear than what we have on this side. For this recipe, I find that doing a double filter is pretty beneficial. So we're gonna kind of speed past this process because this will take a while. However, once all of your liquid is passed through, I do recommend just doing a second pass through of the coffee filter just to make sure as much of those like solids and cloudiness has been removed. This entire filtering process will take a while, as you can probably already tell. It's not unusual for it to take upwards of like 45 minutes to an hour, so don't be concerned, just trust the process. However, I did this already before, so we have the final product. Let me go get that. At the end of your double filter, you should have something that looks kind of like this. Something that, for all the dairy we added, is still remarkably clear. And interestingly enough, this clarification turned into a color very similar to orange wine. So along that theme, I'm serving it in a stemmed glass. One thing I will note about the service and consumption of this drink is that it is very much a drink that is best served chilled. So once you are all done with your clarification, I do recommend popping it in your fridge for just enough time to get it below room temperature. And then again, as you are storing it, definitely keep it in the fridge. Lasts definitely up to 1 week, and then if you're pushing it beyond that, maybe either drink it a little bit faster or be pretty conscious about how it tastes. Cheers. Again, very, very silky. It has kind of that lower like base tone of coffee, so there's a lot of like richness to the lower flavors. And then it has this like really nice tropical taste kind of at the top and at the front of each sip. It's complex, it's very sippable, very, very enjoyable. And so with that, here are our 3 cold brew drinks. These are all decently labor intensive, but again, I think the exercise of this is very much worth it for the final result. All of these utilize different techniques. All of these have pretty different flavor profiles. And so if you are having I keep coming back to like the garden party. I just really feel like that's where these are most applicable. If you are having a garden party, perhaps you can surprise your friends with one of these or all of these. And if you're having a garden party and making these, please send me photos or something. I would very much like to see them in action. Regardless, I hope this has been fun. I hope this has been useful. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna go enjoy these, the fruits of my labor for today. With that, I am Morgan. You can find me here on YouTube once a week plus shorts. Additionally, you can find me on TikTok or Instagram every single day. This has been very fun, very enjoyable. I'm gonna take this one, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everyone.